And welcome to another edition of the Carolina Contractor Show. We're going to jump right into it today because we're going to be talking about the election. Trump has won, and we did last week. We talked about what Trump's policies were going to be overall and how they would affect the country, the world, you and I as individuals. Today, we're going to see how Trump's policies will have an impact on the construction and building industry. But first, a little introduction. My name is Eric Smith. I do inside sales for Home Builders Supply. Across from me, Donnie Blanchard. He's a general contractor. He's the owner of Sure Top Roofing, the owner of Blanchard Building Company, and he also found us 20 million new listeners. I don't know where he got them from. Evidently, a few years ago, they were doing something else, but now we got them over to the show and hitting the website. If you want to join them, they're at thecarolinacontractor.com. You can also download past shows there. We got links to our social media, Facebook and Instagram. Also, if there's a question you have about the show, about the 20 million people, or about your house, it can be the inside, the outside, the roof, the crawl space, inside, outside, it don't matter. Click on the Ask the Contractor button, and that goes directly to Donnie. Any question you have, and he'll get back to you. And sometimes we do a questions only show, or that gives us a subject idea that inspires us. And you can also check out the show on the YouTube site. We've started putting them up there. So if you want to check it out, start at the website, thecarolinacontractor.com, or again, go to the YouTube site and just search Carolina Contractor Show, and you can find it there. Anything new in your world since the election, Donnie?
Oh gosh. Well, the phone's been ringing a lot more, and I can hardly keep up. I am pleased to say that we got a really busy spell, maybe midsummer, and we were working out of that, and that carried over into the fall. But we have some really big jobs that have come in, and I want to say that that's going to be attributed to consumer confidence being a lot higher than it was for the last 4 years. I think everybody was just kind of sitting on pins and needles waiting to see what happened, but consumer confidence is everything. Everybody in every trade, supply, subcontractors, everybody said things are moving a lot more than they were just 3 weeks ago. So that's great news all the way around.
You know, I think that's interesting because one of the subjects or sub-subjects we're going to tackle today is the consumer sentiment or how people are feeling. So I'm going to hold this up and see if I can frame this correctly. We get trade magazines and this one, though it might be backwards on the screen, is one of the trades that come to our store, and everybody, no matter what they do, get trade magazines. You don't find them on the newsstand. The magazine's called Construction Dimensions, and it had an article by a gentleman named Mark L. Johnson, and it's about this very thing. How about the effects that Trump might have on building and construction? Now, the article was written before the election, so he had Kamala Harris's positions versus Trump's. Well, she lost, so we don't care. We're throwing those out. We're just going to concentrate on some of the things he said would happen if Trump won. And Donnie and I are going to throw in our 2 cents on that too. So basically, it's going to be things that Donald might actually do when he becomes officially president for the second time, 45 and 47. That's kind of cool. And how it's going to affect the building industry. I will have to say, overall, once the election was over, and I'm not the first person to say this, Donnie, it was like a heaviness was lifted. Everybody was kind of back to normal, and everybody's cool at work and in the neighborhoods. Online, it's been fun. I got to admit, I've lurked on some of the social sites to watch the left absolutely melt down over his potential cabinet appointments. Have you followed any of that?
Oh yeah, and I don't have time for it, but I make time for it, and yeah, it's just it's kind of funny to see, and then I'm not so well versed on everybody. A lot of these people are kind of new to me. And anybody who didn't follow him through the campaign is a new face, and so I've done a little digging on a few of these guys, and man, a couple of them are savages, but I think we were kind of screwed up, and I think we'd gotten away from the America First platform. So that's really all I care about. And I think when you said the heaviness got lifted, it's because I think the majority of people in the country are pro-American. If you're smart, you're pro-American, and if you're not, get out of here. But it's one of those things where that heaviness, I think that's attributed to people seeing this America First movement making a wave in the other direction again. And it was going pretty far the other way. And that's scary, man.
Well, that's interesting because the first subject we want to talk about was immigration enforcement will be returning we would assume with Trump. He's going to go back to the old policies. Now, one of the problems he had last time was he said, I'm going to build the wall, and the money wouldn't get appropriated to him. So he tried to do some workarounds. He couldn't get the money that way. And it basically got shut down. A lot of it, Republicans, or we can use the term the rhinos, Republicans in name only, that just kind of saw him as an adversary. Mm-hmm. So the first thing in this article is the guy said, there's multiple people, and forgive me for misquoting or misattributing some of these pieces of information, but this magazine article was so good. One guy said, the first thing we need to do, and we mentioned this last week, is stop the supply of illegal immigration, or focus on the supply side enforcement. If you shut the wall or the opening to the wall and no one can come in, you're going to have a better ability to attack the problem on the inside. And you had an excellent metaphor for this, Donnie.
Yeah, isn't that just common sense? In the roofing world, gosh, if you got a leak and your house is taking on water, the first thing you do is stop the water intrusion. You stop the leak, man. You don't go fix the drywall and the insulation and paint and fix the inside before you stop the water from coming in. So that seems like common sense, but I think in terms of the deportation threats and all the things that are going around right now that are scaring the heck out of a lot of people in the construction world, just stop the inflow. Just stop the inflow, and I think that'll make a big difference.
Yeah, because Biden's way was called demand side approach, which means you try to crack down on employers that are hiring undocumented workers. But it's easy to turn a blind eye to that and go, hey, make sure you're hiring someone that can legally work. Oh, we promise we will. And they really aren't. Have you seen who Trump wants to be his border czar, Tom Homan?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Oh,
he's a savage.
I'm liking this guy. Oh, if anybody out there has not seen him or is not familiar with him, search Tom Homan, Homan, and AOC, because Cortez asked him some question about separating families, and he's no nonsense. He speaks legally and emotionally. And then another representative in the past couple of years, I can't remember, accused him of not liking brown people and doesn't know what it's like to have a 5-year-old die, and he absolutely shreds him. I can't wait till Homan gets in charge of immigration. He said he'd do it for free if he's asked.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of these guys are doing it for free. They just believe in the cause, and I think that's wonderful. But did you see where you mentioned AOC? She's some kind of senator in New York. I don't know what her title is really, but she is extremely far left, and she's a voice for her folks. But right, if you're watching YouTube, you saw the gesture. I agree, Eric. I saw an article this week where she actually dropped her pronouns from her Twitter account. So I heard AOC is even getting on board with the anti-woke, and I had to click on it. That was great clickbait, by the way. And I clicked on it, and really what the end result of the article was is that she dropped her pronouns, and all that's kind of ridiculous anyway. But for her to do it, I think that said a lot.
Yeah. And the other thing that really bugs me, I mentioned this last week, but it just really bugs me, is people on the left tend to say, well, if you don't have the immigrants here, and we're speaking illegal, well, who's going to pick your fruit, your vegetables, and mow your lawn? And I'm like, what is this left's fascination with having almost slave labor wages and slaves working for them, where they actually think, no, we should have these people here because they'll work for pennies on the dollar and get all that dirty work done for me so I can live this higher upper crust bourgeois lifestyle that they're preaching all the time. It's so insulting to legal immigrants, especially.
They were pro-slavery back then, and I guess maybe they reworded it, in the 1800s, and that they reworded it, and it sounds a little different now. But when it comes right down to it, and the way that they feel and act, I mean, it's almost like they're still in that same mindset, man. Sad.
Yeah, and like we were talking about Rush Limbaugh earlier, as Rush would say, I haven't seen Democrats this mad since Lincoln freed their slaves. All right, another thing on the immigration. Here's the thing they want to do, because people are saying, oh, well, if you get rid of the illegal immigrants, what are we going to do? I don't know if you take every illegal or undocumented person here and just kick them out, but one of the articles I'm going to get to had a great way that you can use immigrants that are here to keep the impact on construction and hospitality, manufacturing, industries that rely on immigrant labor, keep them here. And they call this the ID and tax bill. And this article in this magazine said, the ID and tax bill is for immigrants already here. A lot of them have the skills, but they can't be hired. This immigration reform proposal would act like a guest worker program similar to DACA. But under this proposal, undocumented workers who have lived in the United States for at least 5 years and pass a background check, meaning if they're a criminal element, they get the heave-ho. They could become employable as W-2 wage earners. That way they would pay taxes. They would receive a tamper-proof ID that would allow them to work legally, but they would not have the privilege to receive welfare or have voting rights because they're still not citizens. And here's the added bonus. An ID and tax program recipient would raise Social Security's coffers by $4.75 billion a year for every million workers, because a lot of illegal immigrants work in cash, so they don't pay into the system directly through Social Security or federal and state taxes. They kind of are bypassing it. This would make them pay taxes, continue to keep their job, and still have to find a legal way to become a citizen, but not necessarily be deported. You cool with that idea?
I think it's great. And I think that the end game there will be, I think we touched on it last week, but the end game there is that they'll also be on paper. They won't be under the radar anymore. So when it comes to things like, financing a house or financing a car, they're going to be documented, and their pay is going to be documented. So it's almost like they're working for whatever they can afford. And, I'm not a fan of credit or anything, but if sometimes with a house or a car, I mean, no secret there that's something that you need to pay in small bites. And so I think that ultimately, if they come here for the American dream, and maybe they came here illegally, but what you just said, I'm a big proponent of that. I've met folks who have had to take a much harder path to citizenship, and they were great people, great family people, and they did it, but it took them a long time. So what you're saying sounds like a more streamlined approach, and it sounds good to me.
Yeah. Fingerprint, background check. If you have a criminal record, get out. Give other people at least a chance to make good on it. The final line in this article about all that was really good. It said, but for the program to work properly, securing the borders is most important. And that goes back to what you said. Stop the leak and then deal with the problem inside. And then you can really make headway on this problem. And again, maybe it's being misrepresented on how Trump means mass deportations, or probably the leftist press is misinterpreting it intentionally to make it sound like he's going to have the military out there pointing guns at heads. Hey, the only time we saw that happen was with Elian Gonzalez under Clinton's watch, when he literally had a rifle pointed to a Miami American citizen's head to say, let go of this immigrant.
Yep. Good point.
All right, number 2, Donnie. We hit a little bit of this with Homan heading up the border security, and we also mentioned how we're having fun watching the left explode at the idea of some of Trump's cabinet posts. One of them, and I'm not completely familiar with this. The guy gives me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies, but it's Matt Gaetz out of Florida talking about making him the attorney general, and someone said he's the perfect candidate to hire as attorney general because he knows law, he's smart, and he also has an axe to grind. So he has absolutely no problem with saying, let's go. Let's dig up some stuff and get rid of this swamp.
Yep. Well, I do. And I'm going to comment on something that I wanted to say when we opened the show, but drain the swamp was a loose term the first go round. We watched him try to do it, but you watch a guy who's a non-politician step into the political world, and all of a sudden he is, master of the universe, and he's the most powerful person in the world. And I just don't think that he knew how to use it. I don't think that he understood what he understands now. And I've told somebody, and actually everybody I've mentioned this to agreed with me. I'm glad he didn't win in 2020. I think that had he won in 2020 and just had 8 straight years, um, the agenda of the other side wouldn't have gotten exposed like it did. And I think that the last 4 years really exposed just how anti-America a lot of these policies that were being put in place were. And it's almost like what was wrong was claimed to be right and vice versa. And so, I hate to reference the Bible on that because not a religious show, but that's kind of scary with end time stuff, saying that, what's evil will be called good and what's good will be called evil. And, you kind of feel that way. I mean, it was almost like we were being forced to agree or pretend that things were that were not. And I won't even go into that because, gosh, we'll go down a rabbit trail there. But it was scary. As a dad, I'm thinking, what in the world is the world coming to, and what are my children going to have to experience? So I almost think that the last 4 years gave him a chance to catch his breath. It humbled him. I mean, he got shot at, for heaven's sakes. It humbled him, and I think that it let him put a plan in place that's going to be a lot better than what he would have had 4 years ago. That being said, what you mentioned with the cabinet members that he's coming out with, man, these guys, they're hardcore, and I don't think he would have come up with those same people until he saw just how bad the corruption was. So I'm game, and I think that the country has spoken. I think a lot of people are on the same page. I want peace. I'm not about going out here and starting, bullying anybody and none of that stuff. But I do think that peace through strength is a real thing, and I think that we're in a mess, and the outlook is looking more positive than it has in a long time.
Sure thing. And I think some of the big names get recognized or take all the oxygen out of a room when you mention who would be head of this department or that department. The AK guy, Brandon Herrera, they're talking about putting him in as the head of the ATF. For people not familiar with him, put a thumb in it. That's one of the phrases. Look him up, Brandon Herrera. But he said, if I were honored with being given the head of the ATF, I will just want to let everybody know I will break it down, tear it apart so it can never come back, and then go to Mr. Trump and say it's officially destroyed, move on, and then I'd go back home to Texas. They get the attention. But how does this affect construction and building? There's a couple boards. There's the National Labor Relations Board and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And there's a couple names floating around there that could have a big impact. One of them is Marvin Kaplan, is possibly becoming the head of the NLRB, and also Andrea Lucas, which I think she will become head of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And the thing is, they will be able to work with border immigration to have an effect on how these immigrants and the United States population in general works, and how the labor force doesn't get bogged down by government restrictions. The only downside, and I use that term lightly, is if Lucas is head of the EEOC, there will still be a Democratic majority on the voting section or block of that commission. So she won't be able to necessarily override things, but she gets to control the agenda. So there will be some things that we'll need a little patience on. But leadership changes, reshape labor policies, and Trump definitely wants to do that. So I think that's going to be good. The other big names he's bringing in, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and I'm excited about these two. Have you read anything about their commission or their department they're going to make?
Absolutely. Government efficiency is the way to sum that up. And man, those two guys, I mean, together, they're going to be a superpower. The whole team is great. It's almost like this real life Justice League Marvel movie kind of thing where, everybody who's good at what they do just got put in the perfect position to succeed and really make a difference. So yeah, Vivek, I was a proponent of his. When he was running for the presidency, it was hard not to like the guy. I mean, he's so well spoken and he's intelligent. He's young. He's fired up, and man, he could move a crowd. And Elon, I don't know that we would hang out. Not that he would hang out with me, but he's a little off. But the dude is a genius, and putting the smartest person in the department that you need him to make a difference in is just a no-brainer.
Yeah, I like somebody said that, why does everybody treat Elon like he's the smartest person in the world? Elon doesn't say that, but Elon is smart enough to get the people who are the smartest at what they do to work for him. And that's why he's successful. So him being head of this Department of Government Efficiency, they're calling it the Doge. I think they should call it the Doggy, DOG, and then because it just sounds funnier to say I'm head of the doggy.
Yeah.
But anyways, the two of them get flack from Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, the senator from Massachusetts. She said, "Oh, great, we start a new department, and they put two people in the place that could do the job of one. Real efficient guys." And Elon Musk came back with, "Well, we're doing it for free, so we're already being efficient because it's not going to cost the taxpayers any money on us." Now, I want to mention somebody else who's not been part of this conversation, but his style of management could be beneficial. And that's Jeff Bezos, and he's head of Amazon. And love him or hate him, he owns the Washington Post, which is an ultra-liberal rag. But his job is to make money, be efficient. Imagine what he's done with Amazon. Love it, hate it, especially if you work there. I know people have their opinions, but he's made it streamlined. He's made it efficient. And you click a button on your phone and you can have books and light bulbs and groceries delivered to your door in hours, if not a day. He knows what he's doing. Imagine if you had a Jeff Bezos running agencies like the DOT, the IRS, or from my lips to God's ears, the DMV, where you click an app and get your license, or you go in and the people there are trained on how to be efficient or quick. And you said hire people from Chick-fil-A. So when you go to get your license or go to the IRS, they always respond with "my pleasure."
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody likes that DMV line, man. Maybe they should, they do have two DMV lines, titles and then renewals. But yeah, Chick-fil-A folks have figured it out. Biscuitville's following suit. They have a similar drive-through pattern. And yeah, that was a game changer for fast food, and the food's better. So it's closed on Sundays. Hey,
but nothing wrong with being closed on Sundays.
Right.
And I just think overall being more efficient means products are done on time. They're done on budget or under budget, and everybody wins. People sometimes think efficiency means loss of jobs. Actually, no, efficiency means you can do more things. And the same article I was talking about that I was reading, one of the things the guy talked about is there's a lot of stuff sitting in the wings ready to pull the trigger on, and they need the people, but they wanted to let the election go by. And they said very possibly by the spring, we could really see a big bump in production and demand. And one thing that's going to help that go is regulatory activity needs to be changed. And you're a small business owner, Donnie, but you get affected by government red tape all the time, just like starting with a permit process.
Yeah, especially that's the main place that it affects me. And you have to go through several departments, and environmental health first, and they have to clear you for everything that they have to inspect and do all the plan review for mainly the septic and the well, or just what's going to happen with your land, your setbacks, and they give you what's called a construction authorization. So the inspections department won't even talk to you about a permit until you have that authorization from environmental health. And I think that a big reason that Trump is targeting that area is because he was a real estate developer before he got into the TV and of course presidency. But he experienced that red tape, and a lot of these people, maybe they just don't like you, and they don't believe in your projects, so they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep you from getting going. I guess that's not always a bad thing. A controlled growth platform is what a lot of municipalities say that they are all about, and that's not a bad thing if you have big businesses trying to infiltrate your small town. But that being said, everybody's got to have a place to live. With North Carolina being the third most influx state in the country, behind Florida and Texas, that's one of those things where if we have to dance through all this red tape. Now, in my county, we're still a smaller town, but you go one county east and then the county east of that, it's impossible to get a permit in a timely manner. And you just have to go through so many different departments. And a lot of those departments, the way I word it is the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And they've all switched to a portal system. There's no more paper applications, and it's almost like you can't get your hands on a real person anymore, and it's very sad. But if he does away with that red tape or clears some of the way for that, some people are going to lose their jobs, but those people probably were, an extra layer that wasn't needed in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Other left side pundits were saying, well, these restrictions on building or construction or the regulatory roadblocks that are put up there for a good reason. And then they were talking about Trump's going to roll back things like Biden's position on overtime and independent contractor classifications. And it's like, yeah, he's going to get rid of those. But Trump also said no tax on overtime. How about no tax on that? No tax on tips. How about no tax on Social Security withdrawals because you already paid tax to put it in there, and as you take it out, it gets taxed again, and the government didn't do anything. So if he's going to pull something away, Trump's been very good to say, but I'm going to replace it with something even better. And the independent contractor classification went into, I think California was one of the examples with Uber or something, and they were independent contractors, so they got paid a different way. And California said, nope, they got to be considered employers. Full-time employees, and you have to treat them just the same. And Uber's like, that's not working for our model. Everybody was happy, and you're screwing around with it. That's the stuff Trump wants to get away with or get rid of. And then just imagine if you're working a job that gives overtime, and not only are you going to get time and a half, but it wouldn't pay taxes. So your employees would love to work for you.
Yep. Incentivize work again. Now with everybody going home during the pandemic, think about how long it's taken to untangle that knot. I mean, a lot of people went home and they got lazy, man. But they still did their job. They still met their quotas. So technically, their employer can't say, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. That being said, being at the house all day, every day, there's just something about it. I mean, I could see working from home a day or two a week, but there's no such thing as a stay-at-home contractor. So it's not even an option in my world. But, like you mentioned, incentivizing work again is just about as important of an issue as anything else, I think.
Yeah. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, people don't think has a big effect day to day on the economy, on employers, on the labor groups in general, but it's actually pretty big, and that's shifting DEI policies. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. On the surface, the words sound good, but they're used in a kind of heinous way. Any idea, Donnie, how much do you think in 2024 so far U.S. companies spent on DEI policies, meaning hiring people to say, we got to have meetings and slideshows and be diverse in the way we talk and work among our coworkers? Any idea how much?
I don't know how much, but I'm guessing it's in the billions.
$7.5 billion so far in 2024 has been spent on DEI policies for businesses, and they've been an abject failure for the most part. So much so that Trump said that he's going to reenact or reinstate a previous executive order he had in his first term, which restricted certain DEI training concepts, because we see it in the military. There's one great example of the guy standing on a Navy ship, a sailor, and he says, how I get ready before the incoming enemy arrives, and he puts lipstick on and skips across the ship. And that scene is, oh, good, you're being inclusive. That's what he wants to do. No, I want him to learn how to kill and be efficient at doing that. Is the aforementioned Rush Limbaugh used to say, the military is designed to kill people and break things. That's what I want it to do. Well, DEI is going away because Ford has gotten rid of their DEI program. Harley Davidson. How does this affect construction? Well, Lowe's got rid of theirs. I didn't know they had one, but they've decided, no, we're not going to do that anymore. UNC school system got rid of their DEI programs. And if you've lost UNC Chapel Hill on your leftist social agenda,
yeah,
you didn't, as you said, they lost the fort. No, the fort burned down to the ground and they put a parking lot on top of it. It's done. So Trump wants to roll that back. He wants to roll back any of Biden's DEI policies and just say, hey, let's focus on, as you pointed out, working together and being a team when it comes to being a country.
I never saw Chapel Hill giving all that up, and whoever would have thought that when a group of fraternity guys were protecting the American flag from Hamas protesters, that a few short months later that Chapel Hill's going to drop the DEI thing. And if DEI were a thing, they should do it the right way. I think it should be called QDEI, meaning qualified being the first part of that acronym. If you're qualified, I don't care what color you are. If you're good at your job, rock and roll. Let's do this thing together. That means you can be as diverse as you want to. Equal. Hey, dude, if you're qualified, we are equals. People that work for me, I don't say, hey, this guy works for me. I say we work together. I've always worded it that way since I've been self-employed. And if you're qualified, I'm going to make you feel as included as anybody. You're part of the team, but be qualified, carry your weight. You didn't just get hired but because of all the wrong reasons. And I thought DEI was going to collapse from the beginning, but it was being held up by. It was being held up for all the wrong reasons. I'll word it that way just to keep from saying the wrong thing. But yeah, qualified. It doesn't matter about any of the rest. Just be qualified and opportunities. I understand that they say, well, certain people don't have the opportunities. I get that part of it, but they have minority and women-owned business programs that are flourishing now. So that's a completely different deal from DEI. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. I think that was well said.
I would be willing to go on record, Donnie, that you and me and people that work in our industries, whether it's direct construction on the site like you do, or selling supplies like I do, or all the businesses and trades involved, our groups are the most diverse you will find in this country when it comes to where people are from, skin color, socioeconomic levels. We have the most diverse groups that we work with. We could have 10 people and there'll be 4 different races and 2 languages, but we all come together every day and we work. And our goal is, Charles, our one of our managers says, is 4 o'clock, we go home on Friday. That's what we're working for together. And that's what we don't need a special program in place to tell us how to do it. We just work together. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, as you pointed out, does not matter. We have one common thing: get the job done, do the best that we can at it, and go home so we can hang out with our families for a couple days.
Yep. That's what makes a good day of work feel so good and makes you love the people you work with. And that common bond almost got interrupted. And can you imagine dropping a DEI hire at a supply house and, or even just a DEI hire? What if I had to hire a trim carpenter or somebody because of a DEI thing and the house looks like crap? And it's like, well, what happened? Well, I had to hire this guy because, I was made to do it. And I'm so sorry that your end product didn't turn out like you thought, but I had to abide by the government's rules. That's all BS. And I'm glad that it's on the way out the door, man.
You don't want to hire a drywaller who doesn't know what they're doing. You need to hire people that can knock it out quick and do it of a high standard and do it for the best money. So yeah. Do you want a cheap electrician or a plumber? Well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I got this DEI requirement that says I got to put the plumbing in by this person. And
I got one for you. Quality and qualified go hand in hand. Maybe I should have said that the other way. Qualified and quality go hand in hand.
All right. We're going to go ahead and trademark that. That's going to be a slogan for the show in the future. And we're not going to abandon talking about Trump and politics and how they affect construction and building as we do more and more of these shows, because they're intertwined. And I think we're going to see a really big impact on it in a positive way. And going back to that article that I told you about, I would show you the magazine cover again, but I made it to a paper horn. I'm sorry.
Oh, damn.
Fidget. But that article kind of summed it up when he said there's a lot of stuff sitting in the pipeline. They're waiting for this election to be over. And when they found out Trump won, he said, I expect in the next few months, especially the spring, there's going to be some stuff unleashed that's going to be very positive for everybody in the country. And I'm looking forward to that. We will keep you on top of that news every week on the Carolina Contractor Show.
That's real life, people. Stay tuned. We dig and we're buddies and we talk off the air about all this stuff and we just enjoy bringing it to you guys. And we thank you for everybody listening. The downloads have been exploding and we always hesitated to talk about anything with politics, but shoot, we dove into sports, and that hit really good, and kind of over football about halfway through the season because the local Carolina Cats aren't performing too great. But the election news, post-election news, campaign promises was how we worded last week's show, and I think when we talked about this when we started figuring out how we were going to structure this, we talked about expectations for the future. So I think you did a heck of a job today outlining that, man, and thank you for your time, Eric.
I'm glad to do it. As Donnie said, we just like doing this, and you guys get to listen into our conversations, and we're going to do it again next week. You got questions, comments, anything you want to know about us or about the show, go to the website, thecarolinacontractor.com, and who knows, maybe we'll have Trump on sometime in the near future, so you'll just have to tune in, and maybe it'll happen next week, but we just hope you will tune in to the Carolina Contractor Show.
I got one for you. Make it a great day again.
Say goodnight, Donnie.
Night-night.